I'm Amy Dung, and I'm a journalist for the New York Times in London. I'm here at the Jalsa Salana, which is the annual gathering of the Ahmadiyya community near London, and I'm here with some of the attendees. And we're going to speak to some of them so they can tell us a little bit more about the Ahmadiyya community. Could you just introduce yourselves quickly?
Sure, my name is Qasim Rashid. I'm the national spokesperson for the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community USA.
Hi, my name is Subahat Ali. I am a young imam from Canada.
Hello, my name is Yusuf Seeger. I am from Texas, live in Canada, and I converted to Islam 8 years ago.
Great. Okay, so the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is, something that some people might not know very much about. So, perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about it.
Sure, yeah. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community are Muslims who believe in the Messiah, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian. We believe that this was the awaited reformer who came to revive Islam, reform Muslims, and reestablish a connection between humanity and God by teaching humanity to worship one God and serve all humanity regardless of color, caste, or creed. We've been around for about 130 years. We are established in over 200 nations worldwide. And this Jalsa Salana is our international conference where we're drawing nearly 40,000 Muslims from well over 100 countries. Every country, or many countries, have these kinds of conferences. This is the international one, which is presided over every year by His Holiness, the Khalifa of Islam, who is the head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. And it allows us to come together across cultures, across races, men and women, to partake in the true spirit of the unity of humanity and the true concept of Islamic justice and peace for all people.
Right. And so the international annual gathering is held here near London, and this is where your headquarters is. Your headquarters is in the UK. Can you tell me a little bit about why that is?
Well, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community was established initially in Qadian, India. After the partition in 1947 between India and Pakistan, our headquarters moved to Pakistan. Due to vehement state-sanctioned persecution in Pakistan, where we are being arrested and even killed simply for our faith as Muslims, the fourth Khalifa of our community, Mirza Tahir Ahmad, migrated to the United Kingdom to escape religious persecution and to maintain his role as a Khalifa to promote universal religious freedom. And since the 1980s, our community has been headquartered here in the United Kingdom, where our Khalifa resides and leads all 17,000 mosques that we have worldwide.
Okay, and I first came across the Ahmadiyya Muslim community when I went to a vigil at Trafalgar Square, and this was after the attacks on Westminster. And it seems to me that the community has been very outspoken in promoting, is a peaceful form of Islam. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and why you feel it's your duty to do that?
I think that the entire world is effectively waiting where are those moderate Muslims if we claim that Islam is in fact a religion of peace. This vigil was just one of the multifarious activities and efforts of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community to ensure and bring home the fact that we are peace-loving people. But beyond just being peace-loving people, it is our responsibility to educate people regarding the antithetical rhetoric that has been leveled against Islam, the extent to which Islam has been hijacked by an extreme minority, pardon the pun, but it's remarkable that, and the fact of the matter is, to be honest, that explosions will always sell better than peace conferences, right? This is why, nearly 40,000 Muslims are gathering in this conference. Last year, nearly 80 million people joined from across the world via live broadcast to show that they are against and challenge the idea of extremism and radicalism and terrorism. And these are Muslims who are spending thousands upon thousands of dollars to come to this one convention. then they'll be going to Germany, then they'll be going to, and they're traveling, because we're doing everything in our power. We have to educate. We have to build bridges. Today, we have to ensure that connections are made, and this will only happen through celebrating and understanding each other. Because when a Muslim woman walks past you and a Muslim man walks past you, maybe there are people amongst us who feel uncomfortable, but maybe you don't realize that these are the people, Ahmadi Muslims, who walk past you every day and are willing to give their lives for your freedoms, for your freedom of conscience. If a Muslim or an Ahmadi Muslim dies protecting a church or a synagogue or any fundamental right, that person dies a martyr. This is who we are, and this is what we're trying to get across.
Okay. Now, just a reminder to our Facebook followers here, my name is Amy Dung. I'm a reporter for the New York Times, and I'm here at the Jalsa Salana, which is the annual gathering of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. And if you have any questions, just send them through and we can ask them. Okay, so as we can see, we have a lot of flags representing the nationalities of the people who are attending. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what you'll be doing over the next couple of days at this gathering?
This gathering is centered around training all of the members of the community. Number one, in spirituality, and number two, in morality. Effectively, we all congregate here to bask in the light of our Caliph, the Khalifa, the supreme head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Mirza Masroor Ahmad, who has 5 auspicious addresses, by virtue of which we learn how to become the most beautiful, moral, contributive, and positive human beings, both in our dealings with God as well as our fellow man. And this is the essence of Jalsa Salana, to create an incredible brotherhood, as Qasim Sahib so eloquently put forth, without regard to race or color or any sort of walls.
Okay.
If I could add one more element to that while this is established by the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, it is not closed to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. It is an open convention. I myself brought 3 of my friends who are not members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community all the way from New York City and Washington, D.C. to come join me. And so walking around, you'll find hundreds, if not thousands, of guests who are not members, but they are our honored guests and given the same treatment and respect that any human being deserves. And we want them here because we want our mosques to be open, we want our doors to be open, and we want this dialogue to happen. That's how we're going to end any kind of extremism or fear.
Okay. Now, you've been very quiet, so why don't you just tell us a little bit more about your recent conversion?
Well, it was about 8 years ago I got a copy of a book called Philosophy, Teachings of Islam, and it really made me rethink how I thought about religion. And so I went on a personal journey of researching all the religions again, and I kind of went full circle back to Islam. I really gravitated towards Ahmadiyya because of its position against terrorism. It supported loyalty to one's country, and also had Khilafat, which meant that instead of there being individual groups that have different opinions, right, we have one Khalifa. We're all united around 200 countries around the world, and they all have the same feelings about no terrorism, loyalty to their homeland.
Okay. Well, on that topic, we have a question from a reader, Ms. Etta, and she wanted to know, what is your plan for promoting peace among nations worldwide? Can you just tell us a little bit more about the things you do?
Well, I guess I can start, and Qasim Sahib can pick up. Effectively, the motto of the Ahmadiyya community is love for all, hatred for none. And one of the key motifs and themes that the worldwide head of the Ahmadiyya community has been putting forth for well over a decade now is that there is severe injustice on an international level, on national levels, on municipal levels, and on individual levels. So as a community, we are calling for calling a spade a spade. And this is what is necessary today. The idea of oppression and of demoralization and of so many global frustrations that the world is seeing, the head of the Ahmadiyya community has been traveling. He has spoken at European Parliament, at French Parliament, at British Parliament, at the Canadian Parliament, and as well as US Congress at Capitol Hill. And again he brings home the same theme, that we need to call a spade. We need to stop practicing injustice at every echelon and be honest with ourselves, and transparency.
Absolutely, and so some of the more practical things that we would invite you to get involved with us is that, for example, we've launched a True Islam education campaign at trueislam.com, which looks at how extremists distort Islam, and then we provide the right and educated understanding. And we invite you as a non-Muslim to sign up as a Muslim ally, meaning you stand with Muslims against all forms of terrorism. His Holiness the Khalifa has also advocated that we end the arms trade. We need to stop funding these extremist groups under the guise of military arms. Amnesty International reported that last year, ISIS got $1 billion in military arms from the United States to use on civilians. So we need to end the arms trade, we need to uphold international justice, and we need to engage in education. And that's where the True Islam Education Campaign really comes in. Check it out and sign up as a Muslim ally.
Okay. And we have a question from a reader. Lawrence Chen wants to know what you're doing when you face discrimination from other Muslims. I mean, can you tell me, can you give a little bit of context about this? What kind of discrimination are you facing and what are you doing about it?
So, wonderful question from Lawrence. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community faces immense state-sanctioned and social boycott and persecution in countries like Pakistan. I could be arrested for saying Assalamu alaikum in Pakistan because I'm a member of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. And the persecution is because we believe the Messiah has come to reform Muslims, to condemn terrorism, and to reestablish peace. The extremist clerics of countries like Pakistan, of Saudi Arabia, reject this because this would mean it undermines their strength and their authority. And so while we face brutal persecution, our response for 130 years, despite being killed, despite being boycotted, despite having our graves destroyed, our homes destroyed, our response has been peace. Why? Because this is the example that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught. I want to be very clear. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community is not a reformation of Islam, it's a reformation of Muslims by reviving Islam, that true Islam that Prophet Muhammad taught. And what we argue is that our record of 130 years of peace is not an accident. It is because we are following that perfect Islam that the perfect man, Prophet Muhammad, taught. One where you sacrifice yourself for the sake of humanity, one where you love all humanity, and you never, under any circumstance, engage in any form of terrorism.
Okay.
Anything you want to add?
Right.
Just one small thing that perhaps is very similar. Another facet of this is that we appreciate on a very human level that discrimination is frequently due to ignorance.
Yes.
As such, we have a reason to be patient, not just for the sake of patience, but because it is our duty to go out there and educate the world about what Islam actually is, what Ahmadiyyat actually is, and our actions will speak for themselves.
Absolutely.
When a person is out there saving someone's life, the person will not discriminate, and that's what we're doing, is we are selflessly, like I have devoted my entire life towards serving humanity. Yeah. And there are thousands and thousands of people in the Ahmadiyya Muslim community who, when they're 17 years old, 16 years old, they come to the Caliph and offer themselves and say, I want to spend every waking minute of my life and sleeping completely devoted toward humanity. And this is who we are. This is our response.
Okay, so we have a question from a reader, Sophia Petrillo. She says, in your opinion, what are some of the most helpful ways that non-Muslims can show solidarity and support to Muslims in your community targeted by Islamophobia? And maybe you can speak to this as someone who, recently converted, and perhaps this might be a relatively new experience for you or something that you've experienced less.
Well, I know one thing is, behind closed doors and when nobody else is looking, a lot of times we have a tendency to talk bad about people. We don't I oftenly experience, because I don't look Muslim, right, because of my white skin and blonde hair. A lot of times I get, guys will pull me to the side and say, maybe we should just nuke all of the Middle East, and these are the type of things they say. So when you hear people say things like that, speak out against it. Don't let it go just unsaid, right? And another thing is join a Muslim ally, right, is going on. Just look it up, Google it, it's on Twitter. Join us. You don't have to become a Muslim to support peaceful Muslims, right? We want to reach out with you. We want to work with you. And also just keeping the dialogue open with any Muslim you see as well. Come to our mosques. Yeah, come to our mosque. Door is open, wide open. We're not one of the mosques where you have to be Muslim to come in. It's open door policy, all of our mosques, anytime.
Okay, once again, I'm just going to remind readers, we're here at the Jalsa Salana in the UK, and this is the annual gathering of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. And, if you have any questions, just put them in the comments and we'll ask them. And as you can see, we've got a lot of flags representing all the different nationalities that have come to this event. We've got something like 38,000 people coming this weekend, and we're asking members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community questions. Now, you'll notice we have 3 men here, but there are women here too. So we're going to bring one of them in to tell us a little bit about herself, and she's going to answer some questions too. So, could you just introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Tuba Koker. I'm a student of Arabic and Persian at Cambridge University, and I'm a volunteer here at Jalsa.
Okay. And, I mean, why don't we go back to the question that was asked earlier, how do you face extremism? What do you do about it? Can you, what are your thoughts on this?
I think in the world today, there is hatred, there is violence, but I think unilaterally we do believe that the response to hatred is always love, that the response to violence is always peace. We believe that Islam literally means peace, that one of the attributes of the divine is that he is the source of peace. So the very essence of our religion and every tenet encourages peace.
Okay, and we were talking a little bit earlier about the women's executive. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Right, so the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has its own women's executive, the Ahmadiyya Muslim Women's Association, and you've seen here the men's side of the Jalsa, but have a mirror image on the other side, and we have women running everything. Now I personally believe few things are as empowering as a women's only space. And if you visualize being perhaps a 6-7-year-old girl walking through to the women's side, seeing female security guards, seeing a first aid tent full of female doctors, medics, nurses, seeing female engineers going around checking fire safety. So it's a few things are as empowering as being in a women's only space. We're women, by women, for women, and I think we love having our own space.
And you were saying earlier, one of the great things is, the women do have a big role in organising this. And can you just, tell me a little bit more about, here, I'm just going to pan around. We can see a lot of tents in the background, a lot of flags. There's a lot of stuff going on. So would you mind just quickly running through all the stuff that's happening this weekend?
Well, it's honestly so much. Well, the main reason why we're all here, the main reason why we're drawn to this gathering is, of course, the 5 speeches across 3 days by our Caliph, His Holiness, and that is the main attraction of this gathering. But as you can see, in break times we have exhibitions, we have a bazaar, which is always very busy, and also obviously we have guests from all across the world, and I think it's a time to get to know one another and to know that I think this Jalsa is really, this whole site is really a beacon of peace, and it embodies the motto of love for all, hatred for none. It embodies the saying that Islam is peace, because you can see people from all across the world, just as the flags are all standing beautifully united. I think you can see people from across the world united in their mutual desire of peace.
Okay, and we have a question from a reader. William John Smith wants to know, how does this community interact with or recognise Christianity?
Islam recognizes all the major faiths that came before it. We recognize Jesus as a prophet. And so we consider Christians as our brothers and sisters, and brothers and sisters in faith.
Okay. Right. And we have another question coming in from a reader, Maggie Lowe Williams. And she wants to know, how are you, in a practical way, helping to extinguish radical Islam?
Well, I think from the very first day that a child is born, we inculcate in them this desire for peace. We have both men and women. We have workshops aimed particularly at the youth, teaching them about the true essence of Islam, because I think the further away people go from the true essence of Islam, the more they perhaps have confusions about whether or not violence is allowed. But I think fundamentally, I think through promoting the true teachings of Islam, through promoting a sense of brotherhood, through community events that keep these, particularly the youth, involved wherever in the world they may be, I think we, in a practical way, help to tackle extremism.
Okay, this is a question from Sarah Mirza. How does this community play a positive role with other Islamic communities, so Shia or Sunni?
Well, of course, I think even today you will find people from other Muslim communities here. When we talk about an open door policy, it doesn't discriminate based on whether you are from a non-Muslim or from a different sect within Islam. It's an open door policy for everyone. If you want to talk, we want to talk. We want to get to know you. We consider you our brothers and sisters in faith. So it's an open door policy for all.
Okay, and you're getting a lot of the questions, but we have someone, Corinne Baruch. They want to know, do you embrace all religions, especially Judaism?
Well, of course, Judaism is something that the Quran explicitly, acknowledges as one of the faiths sent down by God. We acknowledge all of the prophets that Jewish people consider prophets sent within the Mosaic tradition. And I think, speaking particularly from a female perspective, I think Muslim women and Jewish women have a lot in common, culturally and within our religious traditions. And I think, of course, Judaism is one of the great religious traditions of the world, with a great cultural, poetic tradition as well.
Okay, and that's interesting that you say that you have something in common with Jewish women. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What specifically do you have in common?
Well, I think, I guess from the spiritual perspective, we bond over the fact that we consider connection with the divine. We consider faith a huge important part of our lives. And I think that marks us as different. And even things like, fasting, things like practices, we have overlap. We both have worship. We have a mosque. They have their synagogues. And I have, my many Jewish friends. Sometimes actually I find the greatest affinity and connection with my Jewish friends, as opposed to perhaps other faiths.
Okay. Well, you've taken quite a few of the questions. So does anyone want to come back and, talk to us a little bit more? I mean, we've already run through some of these questions, and I just want to remind anyone who's watching on Facebook, my name is Amy Dung. I'm a reporter for the New York Times, and I'm here at the annual gathering of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, the Jalsa Salana. And, as you can see, we've got thousands of people here. The flags represent their nationalities. If you have any questions, send them through and we'll ask them. But let's go back to some of the questions we were getting earlier. People were saying, what are you doing to face, radical Islam? What are you doing when you interact with Christians? What do you do when you interact with, other Muslims? Can you each talk a little bit more about that, your personal experience, maybe of, friction with other communities or discrimination?
The only communities we've ever had discrimination with, honestly, are those who promote some kind of intolerance or terrorism. And they're bothered by us because we're the antithesis of intolerance and terrorism. The Promised Messiah, the founder of our community, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, started a wonderful tradition called Religious Founders Day, where we would invite a scholar from various religious traditions, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, to come to our mosque and speak on a topic important to all of us: how to end hunger, how to combat domestic violence, how to end racism. And in doing so, different people of different faiths come together and realize how much more we have in common. This Jalsa Salana, for example, that we host in the UK annually and around the world in different countries, is designed to invite guests. And we just had, I'm from the United States, we just had ours 2 weeks ago where we had about 9,000 people attend. Over 1,000 of them were guests. And they were our honored guests, Christians, atheists, Jews, believers, non-believers, designed to live that proven model of what Islam actually is. And I think that's really the point I want to drive home, that what we're telling you isn't just our opinion or theory. It's a proven model. You can come see it for yourself. You can touch it for yourself. You can experience it for yourself. If you're watching this and wondering why you weren't here this year, we hope to see you here next year.
I think, Qasim Saab, you articulated it very well. Definitely, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has been making huge efforts when it comes to the frontiers of interfaith dialogue. It's something that we've been endorsing for well over a century. And we have to understand that well before the idea of interfaith dialogue was normalized in Western countries, in a small hamlet of Qadian, the founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, as you mentioned earlier, founded Religious Founders Day. But then he laid down the ground rules. And if we zoom into these ground rules, I think, in my opinion, that might satisfy the query of some of our questioners with regard to how it is we are to methodologically answer and satisfy these problems. Number one, he said that when it comes to interfaith dialogue, each religion should only and only put forth the beauties of their respective faiths without making any attacks on the faiths of other people. This was the first fundamental point that he made. And this is the rule, the absolute rudimentary ABC of how we engage in our dialogues. The second thing that he suggested was that world governments, at that time he addressed the British government especially, and he said that the world governments need to actually instate policies that call for common respect of each other's religion. So he drew the line between freedom of speech and respect for other people by saying that you are allowed to proliferate and speak about the beauties of your faith, and there's no one stopping you. But do not hurt the sentiments of other people. And that is why, in the Religious Founders Day, when we have interfaith dialogues and world religions conferences, what we do is we invite the leaders of faiths to come and present their beauties regarding a certain issue, for example, about pollution or anything pertinent, and then the audience is at liberty to decide for themselves as independent intellectuals and as scholastic human beings, as spiritual human beings, which religion they see as most attractive for them.
I'd like to share a little story. So at my workplace, we have very diverse, colleagues. Muslims that are of different sects, Christians, atheists, agnostic, just people that would say that they're spiritual. And one thing that I've done to kind of break down the barriers is my wife is Pakistani, so I bring in a bunch of Pakistani food because everybody likes to try new cuisines. And what I've found is people have lowered their guard ever since I started doing this. And so they see this big white guy come in with this Indian style food. And they're like, all right, man, I need to ask you questions, right? So all the time they'll grab me and be like, come on, let's get coffee. And I was like, I'm going to grill you. And so I keep a policy they can ask me anything that they want. And it's created a means for dialogue. And, something about sharing food has really brought us closer. And so that's something I've done that, as we were saying earlier, a lot of the misunderstandings are purely ignorance or miseducation, where people are just lying, right, on all different sides. And once we talked, right, then, a general better understanding could be had. And
one more really important point I want to talk about is this isn't just a matter of condemning extremism or having a meal. Those things are important and they need to happen. But what the Ahmadiyya Muslim community does is we go beyond that in our service to humanity. We've launched an international nonprofit called Humanity First. And what this allows us to do is build schools that provide secular education to children of all faiths or no faiths, to build hospitals that provide free medical care to all people who ever need it. Right now we're building a hospital in an impoverished part of Guatemala to provide free health care. We've launched eye clinics all over Africa. We've built I don't know how many thousands of water wells all over Africa to provide water to people who are simply destitute. When you serve humanity, when you indoctrinate your children to serve humanity, they have no time to hate them. They have no time to be radicalized. And so we are combating radicalization by destroying it at its very root, by preventing it from taking root in the first place, by teaching our children to love humanity so much that you can't help but love everything that they do and who they are.
Okay, so we have one final question from a reader, Gloria Jean Van Dragt, and she wants to know, can you recommend a good book on the origins of Islam? So, I just want to go around you all, and if you could just let me know one good book or one, an article, what would you recommend people read?
To know the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is to know Islam. Pick up a biography on the Holy Prophet Muhammad. I can recommend several free ones. If you go to alislam.org, alislam.org, in the library section, there's a book called Life of Muhammad. Very simple. Understand his life and you will understand Islam.
Absolutely. I couldn't have put it better. Then when it comes to the actual philosophy or the essence of Islamic teaching, and what it is that a person seeks to achieve by following Islam. Joseph mentioned earlier as well, it is the philosophy of the teachings of Islam. Again, at alislam.org, alislam.org, you just type in the philosophy of the teachings of Islam, and that will give you a wonderful idea of what it is that Islam is really all about.
As long as we're doing book recommendations, one I really liked was called Revelation, Rationality, Knowledge, and Truth. And I like this so much because I'm a secret science nerd. I like physics. I'll get lost on YouTube all day trying to learn new things. And it talks about how Islam doesn't contradict science. In fact, the two are in line. And that was a really big deal with me, with religion. And it gave me a lot of peace to hear that the two didn't have to be in conflict.
And of course, the absolute epicenter of all knowledge and the fountainhead of all understanding in Islam is the Holy Quran, the actual book. So please, that is a book that one must read cover to cover before making any serious objections. In the world of hermeneutics, in the world of logic, in the world of humanity and common sense, and in the world of justice, it's integral that we actually look to the Quran. And if you come across a verse or you come across anything and you have a question, ask us. Ask the Muslims. The Ahmadi Muslims are always ready. There's most likely a center in and around where you live. Start the dialogue. Give us a call at our mission house. We're waiting. We've devoted our entire lives to this. So we hope to see you.
Okay, great. Well, I just want to thank our guests for taking the time to answer our questions. And thank you to the readers for joining me on this very, very rainy day in the UK for the annual gathering of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Amy. You're awesome.